Jake Paul, Logan Paul, Paul McCartney. I don't give a shit where you go on the Pauls here. Randy, it's bullshit boxing. It's not entertaining. It's not really grabbing anything more of a new audience and maybe a few people here and there who are now more going over to UFC and MMA than any place else. Boxing right now, Randy, is one of the single most boring things that I could possibly imagine. I see no reason to get excited about it. There's my hammer.
I I
Here
gotta
it
tell you,
comes, Pete. Here it comes,
when
baby.
this
You deserve it.
first started, when I first heard of this influencer, this YouTuber, Jake Paul, he's gonna box.
Oh,
And then, well, and they're gonna put it on pay-per-view. Well, in the beginning, I didn't like it. I must tell you, I could not disagree with you any more than I'm disagreeing with you right now. I can't wait till his next fight against one of the two crazy Diaz brothers because Jake Paul actually trains. He trains every day. He doesn't take this as a joke. He trains so incredibly hard, and he's not bad either. And he's taken on some pretty decent guys, and he's formed his own promotional group where he's working with a bunch of young fighters. He has MVP promotions, most valuable prospects, he calls it. He has taken Amanda Serrano to the next level. He has taken female boxing to the next level.
but who are these people,
I am
Randy?
loving Jake Paul.
But wait a minute, Pete. You have you heard of any of these guys? Any of these things? Does any of it register even a small ripple when it comes down to talk about sports?
No, unfortunately, and I'm 56 years old, so I saw Ali at the end. So
56.
I grew up where the middleweight division was king, and you knew everybody: Hagler, Hearns, I'm messing up, Sugar Ray. I mean, everybody knew those fighters. Everybody knew everything. And the end of the Ali era was over. Yeah, Foreman came back. I'll get to that movie in a second. But we knew. I grew up, and then I grew in Rhode Island before I moved to Massachusetts. Of course, it was Vinny Pazienza, and I'm telling you, I saw him knock out Joe Frazier Jr. at the Providence Civic Center in front of 13, one of the biggest crowds they've ever had outside of basketball. You can fit more like concert crowd. And then when he fought Greg Haugen and beat him in a decision back in the day, I remember being on national TV and Marv Albert, and the way the Civic Center was set up, it was unlike any atmosphere I'd ever seen for any Friar game or any hockey game or anything else there. And I was lucky enough with my dad and my uncle to be close to Marv Albert. He goes, "Friends and family, something awesome is about to happen." And then in comes Haugen, in comes Paz, and and all what he was, and being Italian myself and everything. It was a huge deal back then. And then they had a rematch in Washington a year later, and Haugen. But those fights are what I remember. Hector Macho Camacho. Right now in the heavyweight division, I couldn't tell you who the champ is. The problem I have with it, I would love to get back. I used to be a big boxing fan. I paid for fights. I went to fights. I don't know. Just too many. How many belts are there now? 20?
Well,
It used to be three.
and that's
It used
something
to be
else that we've
three.
talked about
Now
for a
it's
long
like
time
33.
when it comes to boxing. Bert Sugar, a
Yeah.
great friend of mine and
Oh,
Randy's
great guy.
over the years. Bert was the one who always said to me, "America likes things big-breasted women and big fighters." Is
Yeah.
what Bert always said, and he was dead on the money. See, Randy, that's my point about this. Yeah, there are fights out there, and yeah, there's a couple that you get excited about because you're there. You're in it talking about it. There's no such thing as a fight anymore that stops anybody, and it used to stop us all go, "I gotta see that fight." It's not there. This dilution of boxing with things like YouTube boxing and the Paul brothers and these nickel and dime clowns that they put up there that basically are nothing more than tin can tomato cans standing up there. It's not interesting. The fights aren't good, Randy. They suck. The athletic level of the boxers right now isn't even interesting. Nobody gets excited.
Boy, oh boy, I mean, I could not disagree with you
Here he
more.
comes, man. Come on,
The
bring it on,
excitement.
Kamish.
First of all, Pete, I was at ringside. We didn't know each other then,
Yeah.
but I was at ringside for the Hector Frazier, the Joe Frazier Jr. fight with Paz, and I
Yeah.
was at the Haugen fight, sitting and working with Marv Albert because I was their statistical producer, and
Oh,
I'm on
wow.
headset And it
Right.
always got my juices pumping when I
Yeah.
heard our executive producer, Mike Weissman, going, "Stand by, Marv. We got 3, 2, 1. Coming to you, Marv. And from the
Yeah.
Providence Civic Center. Hi
Yeah.
again, everybody. Marv Albert, Dr. Freddie
You
Pacheco."
guys do terrible Marv Albert
And
impersonations.
I'm like,
That's all.
We did a great Marv Albert.
but
Yes.
you got to
No.
understand, back then, there was basically the WBC, the WBA, and then
Yeah.
the IBF came along.
IBF. Mhm.
Now you got the WBO and the IBO and every alphabet combination you can put together. So instead of having one champion in every division or even 2 champions, you got more
But that's what
champions.
Pete's point is.
Why can't we have a unified belt? Why can't we have a unified belt? Is it because certain fighters don't want to fight certain fighters under what conditions? I don't understand. Can't we just go back to Rocky era and just have one belt? One belt.
Yes.
Heavyweights have a belt. Heavyweights have a belt. Light heavyweights have a belt. Welterweights have a belt. Middleweights have a belt. It's it's because of
It'll
money.
never happen,
allegedly,
Pete.
But
And-
what has
Never.
happened? Why can't I have one belt?
And then back in
Please,
the
please,
80s,
promoters,
what was
please,
there?
you greedy sons of bitches who run this sport, who are still in the vein of Don King, please give us one belt so Pete and I can be happy. Please, just one.
Back in the 80s, when we were talking Pazienza and this and that, there was NBC, CBS,
Yeah.
ABC, and ESPN had the top-ranked fights from Atlantic City and everything. ABC had Howard Cosell. Hello again, everyone. This is Howard Cosell. And the fights, everything was so exciting. Now
We're going to
we've-
sit here one day and we're just going to do impersonations and see who does the best, and I'll
Yeah.
kill you, and I'll knock you all out of the park.
we've got these media platforms, DAZN, DAZN, and we've got ESPN and ESPN Plus, and we've got even more, and they charge you for it. So one might be $10 a month, and another's $20 a month.
Nobody's watching, Randy. I mean, that's the audiences are minuscule. I can count them on my fingers.
Because the fans are being hit more than any other sport. Pay us, pay us, pay us, pay us. And
Right.
it comes down to, with so many fights out there, if you're going to buy every single fight every single week, you're going to be paying more in watching the fights than you do in rent.
But I think
Yeah,
that's the point that Pete's making, and that's all part of it. The promoters are out there. They're greedy sons of bitches. They basically run the sport. They drop these idiot fights in here where the competitors are not even close to being really competitive, which is why everybody's gone to UFC and MMA, which I am not a fan of at all. It is nothing more than organized cockfighting as far as I'm concerned.
Well, but you know
People
what?
love it because it's
Here's-
got action.
Well, the younger generation. That's their thing. They could care less. They couldn't care less about boxing. They care about MMA and UFC. And I'm wondering if we're not going to have, at some point, have more combination fights like we did, a couple of years ago. That drew interest. I paid for that. I didn't think I was going to pay for it, but I paid for it. When we're talking about I'm having a brain cramp because I'm still not
Well,
fully.
but no, but that's, part of the reasoning is what you're talking about here, Pete, because most of the generation that follows UFC and MMA now, they don't give a shit about the outcome. They don't care who's a champion. All they want to see is the fight, the violence, the blood. That's it. It's just become that visceral.
Well,
they don't care about outcomes. Just show me
Randy, I don't know how
violence.
you feel. If there was a way to combine more succinctly boxing and UFC fighting, one time the UFC they have to go by boxing rules, and another time when they fight again, they have to go by UFC or MMA rules. I think it could be really interesting. Now, it wouldn't be really interesting if this was years ago when George Foreman regained the title when he was 300 pounds. But I think nowadays, I think people actually might find that somewhat interesting. You sign a contract where you have this champion go up against in boxing, go against this champion in MMA. They have to fight twice in a year, assuming they're reasonably healthy after the fight. One time boxing rules, one time MMA rules. I would find that a little more fascinating.
Okay, Randy, you're former commissioner of the state of New York. What's the answer there? And is anything like that possible, knowing that the promoters run this with an iron fist and they don't give a shit about whether or not you like what they do?
If I'm running the commission and it's brought before me that a boxer is going to be fighting an MMA fighter, under MMA rules with kicking and rear naked chokes and elbows and everything else. I'm going to say no because the boxer is not used to that. But the MMA guy, he's used to the stand up game with the elbows and the chokes and the kicks and the takedowns. But I am not going to pass it. Look, and I think, Pete, what you were talking about before was Mayweather and
Yeah.
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor. Yes, exactly.
When they first announced that fight, I hated everything about it because I knew there's not a chance that Mayweather is losing this fight. And of course, I was right. But the gyms I go to, the boxing gyms I go to, every MMA person down there thought that Conor McGregor, their sport, their guy, Conor McGregor, was really going to win the fight. And there were side bets going on all the time. And I had a few, because I don't bet, but I had friends of mine making bets, and I said, take the bet because Mayweather is not going to lose. And in the beginning, from the very first press conference, Mayweather was a little bit subdued. He wasn't used to this. And Conor McGregor got right in his face, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to fuck you up." Well, right from there, Mayweather then picked it up, and the two of them over the next several weeks put on press conferences. The bottom line, this is a $100 pay-per-view. Something like 2.3 million people bought the pay-per-view. Boxing people, MMA people. It transcended them. Other people who didn't even watch boxing or MMA bought it just so they could see this incredible event, which of course was one-sided for Mayweather.
Well, but let me go back to what Pete said here, and I think he's right. And the point is, nobody cares who a champion is. It doesn't you have 27 belts. They don't care as long as you show me blood, guts, violence. Guys grinding on the mat, people beating the shit out of each other. That's all they care about anymore, Randy. And I think that's part of the reason why boxing has dipped in the overall scheme of sports fans, because we can't point to one fighter and say, here's Conor McGregor, best fighter in the world. I got to see this guy fight tonight. They don't care. You give me Logan Paul or Paul Logan or Paul McCartney or Paul and Peter, Paul and Mary in there, whatever it is. They're happy as long as they're beating the shit out of each other.